I spent the day talking to two friends who are Republicans. These are sick people. They really are. I'm not trying to be glib here. I say this all the time. There are a lot of Americans with unresolved trauma. They refuse to deal with it, and they have this realization. One day they say, I'm not sick, I'm a Republican. The entire Republican Party is a repository for mental defects, and I'm going to prove it on today's show. This is the Mop-Up for March 29th, 2024. I'm David Feldman coming to you from New York City. Thank you for finding me. Please like this episode so I remain in your feed. We'll start off with the first mental defective, the head of the American Conservative Union, which hosts CPAC, Matt Schlapp. He announced on Wednesday that the male campaign worker for Herschel Walker, who filed a civil lawsuit accusing Schlapp of sexually assaulting him, had dropped the case. Now it turns out Schlapp was not telling the truth. The Daily Beast, which has been on top of this, like Matt Schlapp and a young male Republican, reports that Schlapp's accuser, Carlton Huffman, agreed to a nearly $500,000 settlement. According to reporting by CNN, Huffman agreed to issue the following statement this week, which read, quote, "The claims made in my lawsuits were the result of a complete misunderstanding." He goes on to say, "And I regret that the lawsuit caused pain to the Schlapp family. Neither the Schlapps nor the American Conservative Union paid me anything to dismiss my claims against them," unquote. Well, technically, that's kind of true because the money came from an insurance policy. When contacted by CNN, Carlton Huffman said, quote, "I am only legally allowed to say 5 words, and that is, quote, 'We have resolved our differences.'" Well, I think you said 10 words there, Carlton. You're only allowed to say 5 words. That's more than, you're only allowed to say, "We have resolved our differences." He goes on to say, those are the only 5 words that I'm legally allowed to say. That's like 15. That's like 20 words. So it turns out Matt Schlapp paid him through an insurance payout. Now, how does an insurance company do a payout? Can you take out sexual assault insurance? Is there such a thing? Maybe it's the same company that posted bond for Donald Trump in the E. Jean Carroll settlement. Maybe Chubb has a subsidiary that sells sexual assault insurance, and they call it Chubby? I don't know. The Washington Post reports that the sexual assault lawsuit was scheduled to go to trial in June, and Carlton Huffman's attorneys were prepared to call several witnesses, including 2 other men willing to testify that they were also sexually assaulted by Matt Schlapp, the head of CPAC and the American Conservative Union, who opposes same-sex marriage and any laws protecting the LGBTQ community. CNN reports that Schlapp's accuser, he himself, has also been accused of sexual assault by 2 women in North Carolina. But let's put this into perspective, because I'm talking about Republicans, mental defects. Never forget that Schlapp met Carlton Huffman while the 2 of them were working on Herschel Walker's campaign for U.S. Senate in 2022. So it's not like anyone here is a paragon of virtue or sanity for that part. Here is Matt Schlapp, no worse for the wear, on Newsmax yesterday, blaming the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge on COVID lockdowns and drug abuse. And when you listen to Matt Schlapp, when you listen to him talk, you would never believe that there are now 3 credible sexual assault allegations leveled against him by 3 men. Here is Matt Schlapp.
kind of questions do you want to see answered, Matt?
Well, as I said, you look at our critical infrastructure, and I'm one of these people that believes we've never fully come out of all the lockdowns and the COVID issues. And you can look at whether you look at our air traffic controllers, where we have critical mission problems with filling slots. Mm-hmm. I'm no expert on what's going on the seas, but all I would say is that if you talk to employers in America, they'll tell you that filling slots with employees who aren't drug-addled is a very huge problem.
I'm sorry. Come again? What was the term you used?
Drug-addled.
Drug-addled. Well, clearly, Matt Schlapp, when you hear him talk, clearly this man does not have, nor has he ever had, a gay bone inside his entire body. Please continue.
I'm no expert on what's going on the seas.
The what?
The seas.
Oh, the seas. Okay. I just want to hear him say that one more time. He is, I wish I were as manly as he is. What did you refer to it as?
The seas.
The seas. Okay. Moving on. Excuse me, I've got a cold. And I'm on cold medicine, and I just swallowed my lozenge. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reports that a judge on Thursday, I can't laugh. Hang on, I just swallowed my lozenge. Okay. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution reports that a judge on Thursday found the vice chairman of Georgia's Republican Party, Brian K. Pritchard, guilty of voting illegally 9 times. And you can see by his left hand, he really ruined his fingers voting. I mean, that guy loves to vote. The vice chairman of Georgia's Republican Party, Brian K. Pritchard, has been found guilty of voting illegally 9 times. Pritchard pled guilty to forgery back in 1996 and promised to make restitution on $38,000 worth of stolen checks, which he never did, and therefore he never had his voting rights reinstated. But that didn't stop him from registering and then voting 9 times over the past couple of decades. Pritchard was fined $500 for each of the 9 times he voted and $500 for registering to vote, even though he was not eligible. Besides being a high-ranking Republican Party official in Georgia, Pritchard is a conservative talk show host who insists the 2020 presidential election was illegitimate due to voter fraud. Now, this is a fact. Voter fraud is non-existent because if you try it, as we see with Pritchard, you get caught. People do get caught committing voter fraud. And every time someone gets caught, it's always a Republican who insists Joe Biden lost in 2020. Moving on, MAGA Republican Kari Lake. You know who Kari Lake is? The failed local news anchor who lost her bid in 2022 for governor of Arizona. She has defaulted on a defamation lawsuit filed by the Maricopa County recorder Stephen Richer, a Republican, who took Lake to court after she repeatedly accused him of sabotaging the election results so that she would be defeated. Richer says because of Kari Lake's accusations, he and his family have lived under a cloud of incessant harassment, with the FBI arresting 2 people this year for making death threats. Attorneys for Kari Lake, who is now running for the Arizona Senate seat, currently held by Kyrsten Sinema, Kari Lake will not challenge the suit. She is instead asking the judge to skip ahead to the sentencing phase of the trial to determine how much Lake must pay. In other words, she's admitted guilt without admitting guilt. This is an old Republican trick she's defaulting on this defamation lawsuit the same way Alex Jones and Rudy Giuliani defaulted on their defamation lawsuits. To save face, Kari Lake is now claiming that Richard's lawsuit was a political witch hunt. Of course it was. And she is choosing to pay the settlement so she can focus on her race for Senate. Since losing her race for governor, Lake has repeated the lie that the election was stolen. But so far, when she's asked for evidence, she fails to provide any proof, becomes indignant, and then tells the reporter they are part of the problem. Lake is running against a good man, Democratic Congressman Ruben Gallego, who is leading in the most recent polls. So if you're thinking of donating to anybody, if you're an American citizen or if you have a green card, you might consider donating to Ruben Gallego. Liz Cheney, the former Republican congresswoman who lost her seat due to a primary challenge as punishment for agreeing to sit on the January 6th committee, warned that the Republican Party has abandoned the Constitution in its embrace of Donald Trump. One of only 10 House Republicans to vote to impeach Trump after January 6, Cheney, during a speech Wednesday at Drake University's Knapp Center, warned her party has taken our nation to the abyss and that the future of democracy depends on Donald Trump's defeat in November. Cheney said she's optimistic about Trump's defeat in November, saying that in the lead up to Trump's securing the nomination, 30% of Republicans who voted in the primaries said in exit polls they had no intention of ever voting for Donald Trump. Cheney drew enormous crowds earlier in the week for a speech in Iowa, but so far has made no official sign that she's running as a third-party candidate. I think she turned down no labels. But if she's going to run, she's going to have to do it soon. The clock is ticking if she wants to get on the ballot. Short of Marjorie Taylor Greene, this is the whole show is just going to be demented Republicans. Short of Marjorie Taylor Greene, who came dressed to the State of the Union wearing a MAGA baseball cap, you'd be hard-pressed to find a bigger MAGA moron serving in Congress than Texas Republican Troy Nell, who showed up to the State of the Union wearing a T-shirt with Trump's mugshot emblazoned on it. Back when Republicans couldn't find a speaker to replace Kevin McCarthy, Troy Nehls nominated Trump. Nehls openly admitted he wouldn't vote for any border bill because he didn't want Joe Biden to get credit for solving Donald Trump's signature issue, the migrant crisis. Now, the House Ethics Committee announced it has begun an investigation into Nehls after the Office of Congressional Ethics recommended they look into possible campaign finance violations. That's according to Punchbowl this morning, which says the House Ethics Committee will announce on May 10th whether it will be launching a full-scale investigation. The Office of Congressional Ethics said they're recommending an investigation based on a campaign finance violation not related to the other one that Troy Nehls committed, or the other one. This is a new one, but they won't tell us what it is. We turn now to North Carolina, which went for Barack Obama in 2008. Since 2008, North Carolina has been reliably red ever since. But now it's in play, all thanks to this guy, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson, the black Republican who just got the Republican nomination for governor. There is talk that while Biden's coattails might be short in North Carolina, he could be the beneficiary of a large Democratic turnout voting against Robinson, who has a storied history of spewing hate speech. Really bad hate speech. For example, during a radio interview back in 2018, the lieutenant governor said he was no fan of Dr. Martin Luther King, calling the civil rights movement of the 60s, quote, a communist plot to subvert capitalism. The Root this week uncovered this gem from 2017. It's a tweet. It says, this is Mark Robinson's tweet. Excuse me. Person, quote, Beyonce is a role model. Me, the only people that butt-shaking, devil-worshipping skank is a role model to is people who want to fast track to hell. Nice. He also picked a fight with Jay-Z, tweeting back in 2016, quote, Jay-Z teaches our young men how to be foul-mouthed thugs, and his wife teaches our young women to be hypersexual whores. I guess y'all are okay with that, and so is Hillary Clinton. That was when Hillary Clinton was running for president. In the past, Lieutenant Governor Robinson has called Muslim Americans, quote unquote, invaders, and referred to homosexuals as maggots. Howie Klein from Down with Tyranny found this chestnut from February 27th, 2014. This is a tweet. Note to homosexuals, do not compare my skin color to your homosexuality. My skin color is a beautiful God-given attribute which helped my people survive in the conditions of their native land. Your homosexuality is a filthy abomination that satisfies your degenerate, unnatural lust. Robinson is running against North Carolina's Attorney General, Josh Stein. Robinson, if elected, would become the first black governor of North Carolina. Josh Stein would become the first Jewish one. Robinson has made statements denying the Holocaust. In the latest polls, Josh Stein is leading slightly. Despite being reliably red, North Carolina has been electing Democratic governors. In fact, since 1992, only once since 92 has a Republican won the race for governor. So there's going to be a large Democratic turnout for Josh Stein, which means people will most probably stick around and vote for Joe Biden. Also helping Democrats come November, abortion will be on the ballot in North Carolina. Since the Supreme Court overturned Roe, North Carolina has banned abortion after 12 weeks. In the case of rape or incest, it's up to 20 weeks, and if the mom's life is in danger, 24 weeks. So abortion will be on the ballot in North Carolina. Women are going to vote. A new Fox poll shows nationwide 59% of Americans, that's a clear majority, 59% of Americans think abortion should be legal in most cases. That's a 2% increase since Roe was overturned. Now, with 59% of Americans believing abortion should be legal in most cases, we're seeing 54% opposed to a 15-week national abortion ban that Republicans want passed in Congress. And only 43% of Americans are in favor of a 15-week national abortion ban, which is why Donald Trump is shying away from a national abortion ban. You know, the one that Lindsey Graham is promoting, because whenever I need gynecological advice, the first person I always turn to is Lindsey Graham. So Trump is shying away from discussing a national abortion ban. In fact, he's shying away from abortion altogether. He knows Republicans cannot win on abortion, which Democrats have succeeded in putting on the ballot in several key swing states come November, where voters will be asked to enshrine into their state constitution a woman's right to choose. Again, this is what you do when the guy at the top of your ticket is drawing a lukewarm response from the base. You rev it up by putting a social issue on state ballots to get people to turn out. And they figure, you know what, while I'm here voting for a woman's right to choose, I might as well vote for Joe Biden. I'm getting over a cold. Sorry for my scratchy voice. So, can't be abortion that Republicans run on. Republicans know they have to run on this imaginary border crisis. And it's imaginary. I get pushback, even from Democrats who write to me and say, why do you call it imaginary? Because it is. Biden and the Republicans, we all know this, had a border bill last month, the most transformative bipartisan border bill in decades, but Trump killed it because he needs something to run on. Look, I'm not saying open borders. I'm saying more immigration judges. Stop doing immigration on the cheap. More immigration judges so we can process all these people and get them where they're desperately needed, in towns like Pittsburgh and states like Kansas that are begging for migrants, willing to pay for migrants to come live here. I talked about this last year. People didn't believe me. It's true. It's beginning to get some traction in the mainstream media. From the Wall Street Journal, February 1st, 2024. It's written by Alicia Caldwell. This is a Rupert Murdoch-owned newspaper. Headline: The American City with a Message for Migrants. We want you. Kansas Capital, that would be Topeka, Kansas. Kansas Capital hopes to lure migrants with work authorization to fill some of its thousands of open jobs. So, while Rupert Murdoch's Fox News is busy creating this imaginary caravan of migrants, his Wall Street Journal is reporting the truth, that millions of jobs are going unfilled here in America, and we need the migrants. All of them. The Wall Street Journal reports that Topeka, like thousands of small cities, is grappling with stagnant population growth. And with stagnant population growth comes a smaller tax base and a stagnant economy. Choose Topeka is a program started by the city of Topeka, Kansas, along with its business leaders. Choose Topeka is a program that, according to the Wall Street Journal, offers migrants as much as $15,000 to relocate to their city. But Texas Governor Greg Abbott, the demented sadist, spends tens of millions of dollars shipping these migrants to where they're not needed. Cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, or New York, which already have a surplus labor force. This is an imaginary crisis at the border. We need to process these people and send them where they're needed. Now, I love this. I get this from my listeners. They write, they disagree with me. They write, I'm all for immigration, but I just want legal immigration. To which I say, shut up, you racist. There is no such thing as legal or illegal immigration. Our entire immigration system here in America is illegal. We violate hundreds of international treaties by refusing to process migrants seeking asylum. We have millions of asylum seekers who haven't been processed yet. That's in direct violation of American and international law. So shut the F up when you say I'm all for legal immigration. When you say something like that, you just reveal how ignorant and racist you are. We have here in America an entire branch of government, ICE, operating without any regard for due process. The 14th Amendment, coming in the middle of the night, rounding up migrants, American citizens, and shipping them out of this country and back to where ICE thinks they came from without any due process. ICE is an extrajudicial paramilitary group operating outside the law. So shut the F up about legal immigration, you racist morons. When America shuts down ICE, as well as the for-profit detention centers, which are by definition concentration camps, which are in violation of international law, when America spends the money it's required to on judges to process all these asylum claims, then you can talk to me about legal immigration. How dare anybody who lives in America say, I'm all for immigration, but I want legal immigration. Or, I want these people to take their turn and do it the proper way. Seriously, if you say that, go F yourself. There is no proper way. We have a dysfunctional immigration system here in America on purpose. It's strategically ambiguous because big business needs the undocumented migrants. They want them sneaking in. They want them undocumented because they're easier to exploit. Frightened, undocumented workers don't unionize or ask for overtime pay. A dysfunctional immigration system is baked into our entire agriculture, food processing, and construction industries. They need it vague and confusing to keep their workers scared. The workers with documentation and the workers without. Our government's entire immigration system is illegal. Big business's entire promotion of this immigration system is illegal. ICE is illegal. It's all illegal. So when you tell desperate and homeless women, children, and men crawling through barbed wire to get into this country that they need to wait their turn or do it legally, when you tell them that, seriously, from the bottom of my heart to the core of my very being, every cell in my body tells you to go F yourself. Go F yourself, you stupid, self-serving, narcissistic, myopic racist with absolutely no understanding of our laws or our economy. Headline, Bloomberg, March 22nd, 2024. Notice I'm quoting from newspapers and magazines that Republicans, members of the business community, supposedly read, but they don't. Headline, Immigration is fueling U.S. economic growth while politicians rage. It's written by Augusta Sareva and Enda Karan, March 22nd, 2024. Now, the headline is immigration, but they talk about legal and quote-unquote illegal immigration fueling our economy. I'm going to go full screen here. Excuse me. This cold is a monster. This is from Bloomberg. Almost 9 million positions are open across our economy, equal to 1.4 jobs for every job seeker. Foreign-born workers make up a record 18.6 of the civilian workforce in 2023, and the U.S. approved a record number of work authorizations in the fiscal year through last September. Got it? Almost 9 million jobs are going unfilled here in the United States. That's bad for our economy. It's bad for our social safety net. More from Bloomberg. While the rising number of immigrants in the U.S. has sowed division among politicians across the country and stoked angst among a swath of voters, there's one place where almost everyone seems on the same upbeat page: Wall Street. Last month, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office calculated that immigration will generate a $7 trillion boost to gross domestic product over the next decade. The agency came to that conclusion after incorporating the recent surge in immigration. And don't say legal immigration. I'll get to that in a second. Immigration is not just a highly charged social and political issue, it is also a big macroeconomic one. Janet Henry, global chief economist at HSBC Holdings, wrote in a note to clients Tuesday, "No advanced economy is benefiting from immigration quite like the U.S., and, quote, the impact of migration has been an important part of the U.S. growth story over the past 2 years." The impact of migration, as in the migrants. Okay, more from Bloomberg. Goldman, that's Goldman Sachs, estimates that immigration was around 2.5 million in 2023, a figure that is far above the 1.6 million implied by the change in the foreign-born population in the official household survey from the Census Bureau. See? We're talking about an extra million who don't get counted because they don't have documentation. The positive tone among economists contradicts that seen on the campaign trail, as a surge in the number of undocumented immigrants entering the U.S. through the southern border stokes political strife. The share of Americans who see immigration as the most important problem facing the U.S. is now matching a record high in data going back 4 decades, according to a recent Gallup poll, because Donald Trump made these people stupid. Do you see how you have economists, you have the Congressional Budget Office, all saying that immigrants, migrants, documented or undocumented, are going to add, what did they say, $7 trillion to our economy over the next, $7 trillion boost to our GDP over the next decade. But why would Donald Trump, who's been a failure in every business he ever started, why would he understand the value of migrants? So if you want to have a debate about immigrants and migrants, the ones at the border, let's have an honest debate. Don't tell me there's no room for them. Don't tell me they're illegal, because the whole system is illegal. And don't tell me they're a drain on our economy, because I just proved to you they're a boost to our economy. They pay into our social safety net. Don't tell me there's no room. This is a big country, and we need them. We have a stagnating population. Again, if you want to have an honest debate, you can't tell me that the migrants are taking jobs away from you or bleeding our social safety net, because they pay into our social safety net, documented or undocumented. Money is taken from their paychecks, and it's supposed to go into Social Security. and Medicare. Whether their bosses do that is anybody's guess. If you want to argue migrants with me, the only honest interlocutors are Tucker Carlson, Viktor Orban from Hungary, and the Ku Klux Klan. And their argument is honest. It's the Great Replacement theory. They say America is a white, English-speaking country, and they don't want migrants, people of color, Spanish-speaking people, coming into their country and outnumbering them. Tucker Carlson is being honest about his racism. And that's the only honest argument against the migrants. Because they're not going to replace you at your job. They're growing our economy. They're creating jobs. They're not going to drain our social safety net. They add to it. No, what they're going to do is change our nation's complexion and our accents and our language and our food. That's the only argument you can have against the migrants. So Tucker Carlson is honest. Viktor Orban is honest. The Ku Klux Klan, the neo-Nazis, they're being honest. So be honest. Your problem with migrants is they look and sound different. Let's have that argument, because when you push through all the other lies and all the tiptoeing around the real issue, racism, this is what the migrant, quote-unquote, crisis is all about. And when you say you're all for immigration, but legal immigration, some of you might not know this, but it makes you a racist when you say that. And that is the only thing Republicans have to run on. Hatred, racism, bigotry. Because they lose if they run on abortion. There are reports that since the court overturned Roe nearly 2 years ago, there are more abortions now than there were 2 years ago. Abortion is more popular than ever. Meanwhile, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments Tuesday on whether the Food and Drug Administration should have been permitted to expand access to an abortion pill that is used in more than 2/3 of all pregnancy terminations here in America. Doctors are now able to prescribe the abortion pill through telemedicine and ship it legally through the U.S. mail, but a group of anti-abortion doctors and activists filed a lawsuit back in 2022 to stop this. A lower court in Texas ruled in their favor. Then another court in Louisiana reversed parts of that Texas ruling while upholding others. Now the Supreme Court has to decide whether to reverse the Food and Drug Administration's ruling that makes the abortion pill readily available through the U.S. mail, through telemedicine. And from their line of questioning on Tuesday, it seems as though our Supreme Court justices are not interested in ruling against the FDA. We'll see. On Thursday, Donald Trump attended the wake for Jonathan Diller, a New York City police officer who was shot to death in the line of duty on Monday. Trump used the wake to lash out at Joe Biden and once again carve out a position where he, Donald Trump, despite facing 91 criminal indictments, is the law and order candidate. Here is Donald Trump leaving the funeral home.
The Diller family they'll never be the same. It can never be the same. And we have to stop it. We have to stop. We have to get back to law and order. We have to do a lot of things differently. Because this is not working. This is happening too often.
That's the law and order candidate, Donald Trump. While Republicans and Donald Trump insist crime is soaring under the Biden administration, And while he positions himself on the side of the local police, the numbers tell a different story about crime here in America. Now, crime, despite all the anecdotal evidence and stories that make headlines, crime is down under the Biden administration. I don't care that your brother got mugged yesterday. That's anecdotal evidence. I deal with statistics from the FBI and local police departments. According to the latest FBI statistics, crime dropped precipitously last year. And according to NBC News, which analyzed crime stats in major blue cities like New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Chicago, and Washington, D.C., crime was down dramatically last year. According to the most recent statistics, violent crime nationwide is down year over year by 6%. I don't care that your brother was mugged yesterday. The FBI reports that in cities with populations of more than 1 million, that would be blue districts with Democratic mayors, violent crime down 11%, murder down 20%, rape down 16%, and aggravated assault down 11%. I'm glad your brother got mugged yesterday. He's probably an a-hole. Stop giving me anecdotal evidence. NBC News reports that their analysis of crime before and after Texas Governor Greg Abbott's Operation Lone Star began shipping thousands of migrants to blue cities, it shows that the crime rate dropped. It went down after the migrants arrived. But because so many Americans lack critical thinking, because my brother got mugged yesterday, they believe crime is going up because my brother got mugged yesterday. They're led to believe that crime is going up because Donald Trump says it's going up, and they believe the local news because the local news leads with a brutal murder all the time. And every time the local news leads with a brutal murder, you think, oh, there must be an epidemic of crime. No, there's an epidemic of local TV news stations trying to juice their ratings by giving their audience real-life episodes of Law and Order. Crime is down. Crime is down despite what the Republicans want you to believe. Speaking of crime, Donald Trump's criminal trial, where he has been indicted on charges of forging documents to hide hush money payments to porn star Stormy Daniels, has been officially set for April 15th, despite Trump's lawyers doing everything they can to delay it. Because this trial takes place in the city of New York, Trump cannot pardon his way out of this should he become president. On Tuesday, the presiding judge in the case, Juan Merchan, imposed a very strict gag order on Trump, forbidding him from saying anything about lawyers, courtroom staff, witnesses, jurors, or anybody's family. The judge said Trump would be allowed to criticize the judge himself as well as the Manhattan District Attorney, who's bringing the case, Alvin Bragg. But once again, the judge warned, leave family members out of it. That was Tuesday. By Wednesday, Trump supposedly, we're not sure here, he supposedly violated the gag order. We're not sure. I'll explain why in a second. He continued to maybe violate it on Thursday when he began attacking Judge Merchan's daughter, who is president of Authentic Campaigns, a political consulting group out of Chicago that works solely with Democratic candidates, including Joe Biden. Trump falsely accused the judge's daughter of posting doctored pictures of Trump sitting behind bars. He said she posted those pictures on her Twitter feed, but it turns out the account he was referring to does not exist. He said on Truth Social that because the judge's daughter represents so many quote-unquote crooked Democrats, it will be impossible for him to get a fair trial. Trump wrote on Truth Social, quote, maybe the judge is such a hater because his daughter makes money by working to get Trump. And when he rules against me over and over again, he is making her company and her richer and richer. How can this be allowed? Says the man who has allowed everything. Now, Business Insider reports this morning that a careful reading of Judge Merchan's gag order suggests Trump may be allowed to attack both the judges and the district attorney's family members. So he may avoid a fine. That's according to Business Insider. Everybody else is reporting that he violated the gag order. He may not have. Sorry about, I'm in the end of a cold here, and my throat is very scratchy. Politico reports that Trump might limit NBC's ability to cover the GOP convention this summer as punishment for the news organization hiring former RNC chair Ronna McDaniel and then caving into pressure from newsroom staffers by immediately canceling her $300,000 a year contract. High-profile hosts like Rachel Maddow, Joe Scarborough, and Chuck Todd took to both NBC and MSNBC and protested the hiring of McDaniel, who up until leaving the RNC was not only an election denier, but according to some reports, including the January 6th committee report, she participated in the false elector scheme. I was always expecting her to get indicted. Trump is upset that NBC fired her, even though he himself fired her in order to replace her with his idiot daughter-in-law, Lara Trump. I guess only he gets to fire Ronna McDaniel. We are now hearing reports that Trump is in total isolation and that there is a shortage of Trump surrogates willing to go out there and speak to the American people on behalf of him. This is a serious problem. You need surrogates. You need people in the spin room championing your cause. While Biden isn't as dynamic a speaker as Trump, he has a deep bench of well-respected, beloved members of his own party willing to go out there and bang the drum for him. And the closer we get to November, the more important that's going to be. Barack Obama is reportedly in constant communication with President Biden, strategizing on how to defeat Trump. From the convention until Election Day, Obama will be out on the stump. He's great on the stump. You send him where he's needed. Along with Michelle Obama, who might be even more popular than Barack. You send her out there where she's needed. And don't forget First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, who is also incredibly popular. We haven't seen Melania on the campaign trail once. She emerged from her undisclosed remote location last Tuesday when she accompanied Donald to vote in the Florida primary. But that's been it. She is never standing on the stage when he delivers his victory speeches after winning primaries. She refuses to accompany him to his civil fraud trials or any of the 4 criminal trials. What is the bug up her ass? What, because Her divorce settlement is going to be $91 million lighter because Donald had to post a bond after a jury found him guilty of raping and then defaming E. Jean Carroll. Is that why Melania is so pissed off at Donald? Or maybe it's because starting on April 15th, he goes on trial for paying hush money to Stormy Daniels, a porn star Donald slept with only months after Melania gave birth to their son. Is that why Melania isn't standing by her man? Women. It's so hard to figure them out. Or maybe it's because Melania attended the funeral of Trump's first wife, Ivana, in 2022 and saw how Trump buried the mother of his 3 worthless adult children in an unmarked grave at his Bedminster golf course. This is actual footage from the Daily Mail. Look at that, of Ivana Trump's grave at the Bedminster Golf Club. This is how a supposed billionaire buries his first wife. Look at that. Look at that. That's Ivana Trump's grave. Why the Biden administration isn't running this as an ad, I have no idea. Just keep running that in swing states. Trump really has nobody out there speaking for him. And we're seeing an unprecedented number of well-respected members of the Senate refusing to endorse him. We keep talking about all the Republicans who are getting in line, but I've never seen an incumbent president not get support from elected members of the Senate from the same party. Alaska Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski announced she will not be voting for Donald Trump. She even hinted that she's thinking of leaving the Republican Party and left the door slightly open that she would become an independent or even caucus with Democrats. We also know that, I'll talk about Mitt Romney in a second, he's not voting for Donald Trump, another U.S. senator. Republican senator from Indiana, Todd Young, announced he's not voting for Donald Trump and that he's sick and tired of Republicans automatically assuming he'd get in line and vote for Trump. Last week, Greg Pence announced he would be joining his brother Mike Pence in not voting for Trump in November. Greg Pence also announced he won't be running for re-election. He's a first-term congressman from Indiana. A real prize, just like his brother. When told that his vice president, Mike Pence, is refusing to endorse him, Donald Trump told reporters, "Oh, I could care less." And right there is the problem. Trump couldn't care less, like Melania showing up to Puerto Rico with that dress. I really don't care, do you? Compare this to Joe Biden, who has Bernie Sanders in his corner. Bernie, he has every right to be disgruntled. He lost the nomination to Biden back in 2020. But he endorsed Biden early on last year and will be out on the stump campaigning for him powerfully. You send Bernie out to the right states, that's a great surrogate for Joe Biden. Bill and Hillary will also be called into service, and those are just the political heavyweights. Don't forget the thousands of actors, musicians, writers who will be stumping around the country for Joe Biden. When it comes to cultural influencers, who does Trump have? Kanye and that Nazi Nick Fuentes, who has his own internet show. Joe Biden has Taylor Swift. I hear she has more than 1,000 followers on Facebook. So that could be huge. Thursday night at Radio City Music Hall at a fundraiser in New York City, Biden made $25 million as Steve Colbert played host to a roundtable of former presidents Barack Obama and Bill Clinton alongside Joe Biden. The event started the event started half an hour late when Bill Clinton got his fingers stuck inside a rocket. But I can't laugh. But you can't. Bill Clinton got his finger stuck inside a rocket. But you can't overstate how important Thursday's event was at Radio City Music Hall, not just as a fundraising tool, but as a reminder to voters of what the Democratic Party is and what it represents: stability and perseverance. Clinton and Obama to this day are widely popular, as popular, if not more, than Ronald Reagan. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, you cannot run for president alone. Donald Trump won't be seeing any ex-presidents like George W. Bush stumping for him, or Dick Cheney, another ex-president, won't be campaigning for Trump, especially since Trump keeps promising to lock Cheney's daughter up for serving on the January 6th committee. I need more water. My throat is ragged. You won't be seeing Cindy McCain, the wife of the 2008 Republican nominee John McCain. You won't see Cindy endorsing Donald Trump because we know that Trump constantly denigrates her husband, calls him a loser for getting captured by the North Vietnamese. Earlier this year, Donald Trump lied about McCain and blamed him, said he was the one who tried to kill Obamacare when Trump was president. So just a lie. And then he made fun of John McCain's war injuries. John McCain couldn't lift his arms because he was tortured inside the Hanoi Hilton, which still has nicer accommodations than any Trump hotel. Mitt Romney, the 2012 Republican nominee, and Paul Ryan, his a-hole running mate from 2012, won't be speaking at the Republican convention or stumping for Trump. Mitt Romney has already announced he will not be voting for Donald Trump in November, specifically because of the E. Jean Carroll verdict. It's one thing to transform the Republican Party, but Donald Trump has broken it in his own broken image. You are either with Trump right now or you're not a Republican. And now that Lara Trump has become co-chair of the Republican National Committee, before getting hired, applicants for jobs with the party are asked if they believe the 2020 presidential election was stolen. You cannot get a job with the RNC now unless you put into writing that the 2020 presidential election was stolen. What kind of person would take that job? Put that in writing. Not a good person, and certainly not a competent one. This has all the makings of a landslide, a blue wave come November. Unless the world has completely changed, unless this is Germany in 1932, and it could be, Trump cannot win an American election this way. I know we all said this back in 2016, but back then Trump was an unknown quantity. Establishment Republicans were reluctant, but they figured, hey, what's the worst that can happen? I'll endorse him. What's the worst that could happen? 1 million dead Americans from COVID later, they found out. Today, there are many Republicans too afraid to say so publicly, but there's no way they're ever going to vote for this madman. And he truly is a madman. He's in the bunker right now. Loyalty oaths, making people, you can't work for me unless you put into writing that the 2020 presidential election was stolen. He will only surround himself with mental and moral defectives. He's in the bunker. He's in the bunker. As I reported earlier, Trump's old campaign manager, Paul Manafort, has been contacted to help out with the convention. Paul Manafort, he of the $15,000 ostrich coat, who was doing time in prison for defrauding the United States government until Donald Trump pardoned him. I'm telling you, Rudy might get a call. And now there is talk of Kellyanne Conway wanting to come back and lie for Trump. Most voters are not MAGA or bust. Elections are won on the margins by swaying those on the fence who have forgotten who all these people, even Donald Trump, they've forgotten who these people actually are. But when you start bringing back someone like Kellyanne Conway with her alternative facts, millions of Americans, voters, are going to be reminded how much they despise Kellyanne Conway. They're going to remember how she made their skin crawl. They're going to remember how everyone Trump surrounds himself with makes their skin crawl. Is anyone nostalgic for Kellyanne Conway? Is there anyone out there who says, I miss the good old days when I could eat a bowl of cereal, turn on the Today Show, and wake up to the picture of Kellyanne Conway insisting COVID started in the Obama administration? Again, maybe I'm missing something. Maybe this is Germany 1933. Could be. Again, I refuse to believe this is America in 2016. Again, it could be. But I just don't see how Donald Trump wins in November. It has been 21 days since Joe Biden's State of the Union, which, because Speaker Mike Johnson scheduled it later than usual, turned out to be a campaign speech that kicked off Joe Biden's re-election campaign. Biden entered the Capitol that night, trailing Trump in all the national polls, but he wisely used the State of the Union to talk over the heads of the Republicans in the audience that night and took his case directly to the American people. And the immediate effect was a huge fundraising haul that is shattering records. In American politics, to paraphrase Al Pacino in Scarface, first you get the money, then you get the other stuff. The Republican Party, on the other hand, has a serious cash crunch for the obvious reason that the smart money knows it's all going to lawyers. And who wants their money going to lawyers? Trump has been able to raise hundreds of millions of dumb dollars from small, dumb donors who stupidly believe he's going to investigate voter fraud or run for president with their donations. But CNBC reports Trump's small donor base is drying up. Half of Trump's 2020 war chest came from small donors. But last year, Trump raised 62.5% less from small donors than he did 4 years ago. That's a big drop, and it's starting to look like there's a limited number of idiots willing to donate to Donald Trump because they're either tapped out or maybe, God forbid, they got wise to him. So Trump this time around is going to need big money But big money knows that if Trump sees a pile of cash sitting around, he can't help himself. And the big money donors don't feel, like I said, they don't feel like footing the bills for his legal expenses, which is where a good chunk of that super PAC money ends up. One of the co-chairs of the RNC is his idiot daughter-in-law, Lara Trump, who's married to his idiot son, Eric. Lara Trump said on Thursday that donors can check a box that says they don't want the money going to lawyers. Sure it won't. You just check that box, and the Republican Party under Donald Trump is going to obey your wishes. So at least for the time being, the big money donors are staying away, not just from Trump, but from the entire Republican Party as well. And that's not good for Trump. There's supposed to be a cross-pollination where the top of the ticket spreads money and votes downwind. Conversely, the down-ticket candidates kick money and votes upwind. Doesn't look like it's happening because Trump lacks the resources right now to help his down-ticket candidates. He's been forced to cancel rallies because he can't afford them. And right now, he's got the nomination sealed, and instead of broadening his base, he's still in the punishing phase, calling for primary challenges of congressional and Senate incumbents who he accuses of being disloyal. He won't put that behind him. While Biden is busy solidifying his base, Trump is still cleaning house. He just fired 60 employees over at the RNC and has sent a lot of old guard Republican employees packing. So Biden, structurally, has a significant head start. The Democratic Party, the infrastructure, you cannot win without a ground game and an infrastructure. The Democratic Party is totally united behind Joe Biden. Even though there is a general lukewarm feeling temporarily about Joe Biden among some voters, all the polling shows that Democratic voters are terrified of the prospect of another 4 years of Donald Trump, as they should be. So what Joe Biden lacks in enthusiasm, he more than makes up for in not terrifying voters, especially Democrats, the way Trump does. Democrats hate Donald Trump way more than they are uncertain about Joe Biden. And that will eventually move the needle for Joe Biden and the Democrats come November. Politico reports this morning that overall, the Democratic Party has double the money Republicans do. And it's going to get worse for Trump. Right now, according to the Daily Beast, the RNC only has $11 million in its bank account. 4 years ago, at this time, it had $77 million. The Daily Beast says the $11 million that the party does have cannot be used for down-ballot candidates or even for Trump. That's why he couldn't do that rally. That money has been sequestered, legally sequestered, to keep the RNC in working order, to prepare for the convention. That money is specifically earmarked legally for the rent, the phone, salaries, and, most importantly, legal fees. Trump's legal fees. This is why people don't want to donate to Trump or the RNC, because the RNC is, during this phase of the campaign, can use all the donations for legal fees. And these, not just Trump's legal fees, They're paying legal fees for all the Republican operatives in Arizona, Georgia, and Michigan who took part in that phony electors scheme. And they're now being prosecuted for it. I don't know why Ronna McDaniel isn't being prosecuted for the phony electors scheme. She helped round up Republican officials in, I think, in Michigan and Georgia. She assisted. So why would you donate to the RNC? It's going to lawyers. Maybe not Trump's lawyers, but somebody's lawyers. As we get closer to November, I believe Joe Biden's weakness will become his strength. Biden's weakness is he's bland, tired, old. It looks like there's no fire in the belly. But we get fire in the belly from Trump. And it's repulsive. It's chaotic, nerve-wracking. Americans, in the end, in the final analysis, crave stability from their leaders. I like that my president is sleepy. It means he's got things under control. He's cool. It means he knows how to delegate. Joe Biden, unlike Trump, isn't an exciting candidate, which is his selling point. Trump is the stripper you never want to be seen with, let alone marry. Biden is bland, but he's the marrying kind. I want Joe Biden to carry my baby. And that makes him the perfect antidote to Donald Trump. You vote for Biden to put an end to the chaos. He doesn't say outrageous things. There's no scandal. The closest Democrats have to something resembling Trump is Hunter Biden, but Hunter isn't running. Joe is. And Joe is boring, which, as is the case with most things in life, first a man's weakness and then his strength. Nobody's interested in Joe Biden. Yet, I think in terms of pegging him to history, he is the most consequential president since LBJ. But unlike LBJ, Biden isn't getting us stuck in Vietnam. So you have to go back to Roosevelt to find somebody this competent. But he is boring. He doesn't have the soaring rhetoric of Obama, or dare I say, the facile wit of Donald Trump. I mean, say what you will about Trump, he's fun to watch. Biden is ho-hum. Michael Schaefer, writing in Politico magazine, reported in December of 2022 that books about Joe Biden are, quote, bookstore poison, a publishing black hole. Whereas books about Trump, Obama, Bush, they fly off the shelf. But there just doesn't seem to be any appetite for the inner workings of the Biden White House, or much to the Republican Party's chagrin, the Biden family. It's been more than 3 years of Joe Biden's presidency, and the only scandal Republicans can dig up is that shop-worn claim about Biden ordering the firing of a Ukrainian prosecutor back when he was Obama's vice president 9 years ago. They got nothing on him from this administration. Have you noticed how few scandals there are in the Biden administration? By my count, 0. They have to go after Biden's son or his brother because they got nothing on Joe. This is why James Comer, one of 3 Republican House committee chairs charged with leading the Biden impeachment probe, is now hinting he doesn't think there's going to be an impeachment. Last week's hearings were just shambolic. Instead, he says they're just going to make a criminal referral to the Justice Department to get to what he keeps on calling Joe Biden's criminal activities. but there are no criminal activities. Comer wants to put an end to this, but he can't. This impeachment probe will continue. They're not allowed to stop it because the Republican Party, Fox News, and Trump all need counter-programming, an alternative to Trump's 4 criminal trials this year. But Hunter Biden, Jimmy Biden, and of course, Joe, they don't measure up. Nobody's interested. More people are interested in Joe Biden's State of the Union than watching these impeachment hearings because they know it's BS. But Trump just keep pushing on Hunter. If I got impeached, Joe Biden has to get impeached. It's counter-programming. It's like Channel 5 running reruns of Mad About You, thinking it'll get people to stop watching Seinfeld on Channel 11. Trump is Seinfeld. Nobody's interested in Mad About You. The American people are slowly waking up to the realization that while Trump is fun and scary, which are often both sides of the same coin, we don't trust him. The American people are beginning to realize that life isn't perfect, but it's a whole lot better now than it was when Trump was in the Oval Office. The stock market is closed today for Good Friday. Yesterday, it wrapped up trading for the first quarter of the year, recording the highest returns in more than 2 decades. The last 3 months, the first quarter of the year, saw the sharpest spike in the stock market in 2 decades. The stock market may not mean much to you or me, but it does to Donald Trump, who has said he measures the success of a president based on how the market moves. Market Watch reports that the stock market is now doing better under Biden than it did under Donald Trump, and that's based on charts they did before COVID. This is really going to piss off the MAGA listeners. Okay? Take a look at this chart. It's fascinating. This compares stock market returns for presidents during their first 3 years, 2 months in office. It measures the stock market before Trump crapped the bed on COVID and the entire economy temporarily collapsed because Donald Trump crapped the bed on COVID. Now, Trump always says, I had a stellar economy. The stock market was doing great up until COVID. Well, this chart proves him wrong. This chart is right before COVID. It's the stock market right before COVID, March 18th, 2020, before COVID hit. On March 18th, 2020, the stock market had a pretty good day. It was up 5%. And then the following week, COVID crashed it. So, as you can see, 3 years and 2 months into Trump's presidency, the stock market had a 5.5% return annualized. That's not particularly good, right? It's actually, you'd have to go back to George Bush in 2004 to get a worse return. Compare that to Joe Biden, who since taking office has seen a 33.6% annualized return in the stock market during that period. There's no comparison, right? So before COVID, if you compare the stock market under Trump before COVID hit, that would be 3 years and 2 months in office. You compare the first 3 years and 2 months of Donald Trump in office to Joe Biden's 3 years and 2 months in office. Joe Biden gave Wall Street a 33.6% annualized return. Trump, 5.5% annualized return. And then, right after that, the market collapsed. He's the only president since Herbert Hoover to leave office with fewer people working than when he took office, while Joe Biden has created more jobs than any president in American history. Why? Because of the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS Act, and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. It's creating the longest stretch of economic growth in American history. More good news for Joe Biden. Bloomberg is reporting this morning that the well-regarded University of Michigan's Consumer Confidence Index is now at its highest since July of 2021. Consumer confidence is a leading indicator of how people vote. This is the highest consumer confidence has been since July of 2021. That would be Biden's first year in office, when he enjoyed a much higher approval rating than he does now. March's rise in consumer confidence is reportedly linked to inflation getting under control and a stock market that continues to hit record highs. March's jump in consumer confidence was the sharpest spike since August of 2022. I told you after the State of the Union that Americans would wake up and start feeling good about things. A new Quinnipiac poll is one of many showing Joe Biden opening up a small lead over Donald Trump heading into the November election. Biden leads Trump nationally 48 to 45. There's a lag time between the State of the Union and these polls that are now showing, hey, you know what? I like this guy. When you factor in Robert F. Kennedy Jr. into a three-way, Kennedy gets 13% of the vote and seems, for the time being, he seems to be hiving off more Biden votes than Trump votes. And when you factor in Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Right now, then Trump wins. Okay. So, and a couple of polls show this. Does anybody believe Robert F. Kennedy is going to get 13% of the vote going into the general election? Right now, most Americans, including Democrats, aren't paying attention. They're just beginning to pay attention. And they see the name Robert Kennedy Jr. and they immediately think of Robert Kennedy Jr., the environmentalist, the son of Bobby Kennedy, the great Robert F. Kennedy Jr., before he turned into an anti-vax crank about 10, 15 years ago. Democrats, it saddens me to say that because Bobby Kennedy Jr. was at one time heroic, but something happened. As we get closer to the election, Democrats are going to abandon Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as they come to realize he's running on the fumes of goodwill. He's running on the idea of a Kennedy as opposed to who this Kennedy has become. I used to read his books. He was breathtaking. He went bad. The polls, like I told you, after the State of the Union, are beginning to move in Joe Biden's favor. We've all been wrong before. This time, however, it's not 2016. If I'm right, Joe Biden is going to win, and he's going to win big in November. And if I'm wrong, it's not 2016 all over again. It's 1933, Germany, all over again. And that's not an exaggeration. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Thank you for listening to me. I am getting over a cold and some postnasal drip that you had to bear witness to. So thank you. If you're still listening and putting up with this, thank you. I will be back probably Saturday night with more stuff. If you enjoyed this, please like it so I remain in your feed. That's the best way for me to remain in your feed. If you want to help me, share this. The only reason people are listening to me is because my listeners share this. So the best way to help me, if you care, is to share this. Just copy and paste the link, put it on social media, or in an email or a text. I can't thank you enough for that. And of course, the comments. And we've been doing the hygiene, the MAGA morons. A couple of them sneak through, but I'm humbled by your comments. I read them all. Thank you for your comments and your corrections. Once again, thank you to Bob in the chat room for keeping that civilized. And I'm going to get some sleep. Thank you so much.